Hello and welcome to this overview of the PGCPS Comprehensive School Boundary Initiative. My name is Abby Zan and I am an associate at WXY, part of the consultant team that has been working with PGCPS on this initiative. Today, we will be going over the Boundary Initiative process, including a recap of phases 1 and 2 and a rundown of next steps for the initiative. Let's start with an overview of the process. So what is the Comprehensive School Boundary Initiative? In short, the initiative is an effort to best utilize available school facilities in support of the district's academic objectives. The initiative kicked off at the start of 2021, and since then, it has focused on 4 key tasks. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of school boundaries, feeder patterns, and program locations. Develop 3 draft boundary scenarios with community input. Refine those draft boundary scenarios with community input, and finally, present proposed boundary adjustments to the Board of Education for approval. There is a link to the project website at the bottom of your screen where you can learn more about the initiative. Kicking off in January of 2021, we began with an initial stage of community and stakeholder engagement. The goals of pre-scenario engagement were to introduce the planning process, share data related to district challenges, and to understand community members' priorities with regard to school boundaries. After pre-scenario engagement, the project team undertook scenario development. In this phase, we used community input from engagement to develop 3 draft scenarios for updated school boundaries in PGCPS. Each boundary scenario included potential boundary changes for elementary, middle, and high school levels. These draft scenarios were shared as part of the draft scenario report made public to the community. Next, phase 2 of engagement took place between June and November of 2021. This phase of engagement focused on helping participants understand the 3 draft scenarios and collecting feedback about them. This feedback led us to the current phase of the initiative, which is final scenario development. In this phase, the district's executive leadership is working closely with the project team and drawing upon community input to select 1 draft scenario to refine into a final scenario. This phase also kicked off the boundary change approval process. So in this process, the Boundary Advisory Committee, this is a group of PGCPS leaders who advise on boundary changes, convene to refine and finalize a boundary scenario and offer it to the CEO for her consideration. Upon approval, the CEO presents the final boundary scenario to the Board of Education, which then holds public hearings on the proposed changes. Zooming out, this brings us to the final 2 stages of the initiative. In November of this year, new boundaries will be brought to the Board of Education for approval, and then finally, updated boundaries will go into effect starting in school year 2023-24. Now let's dive in a little bit deeper to phases 1 and 2 and learn about the key findings that emerged from each. Engagement has been integral to this initiative from the start and has been a 2-way process, designed both to inform and educate members of the PGCPS community and also to gather important data and insights about your experiences and priorities within the school system. In phase 1, engagement played 3 primary roles. 1, to inform the public about the boundary initiative and how they can get involved. 2, to provide context and introduce concepts that will allow the public to meaningfully engage moving forward. And 3, to understand community members' priorities as they relate to school boundaries. During phase 1, we held 5 community conversations with 1,157 total participants. 2 of these meetings were facilitated in Spanish, and all meetings were held virtually, including breakout room discussions led by trained facilitators. Over the course of these meetings, facilitators logged over 750 comments from community members, and the project website received 7,880 views just during this first phase. Across the community conversations during phase 1, 3 key themes emerged. 1, aging and substandard school facilities, Participants raised many concerns about the state of school facilities in PGCPS, including concerns about how facility condition impacts student morale and educational quality. 2, the impacts of overutilization. So participants raised concerns about the impacts of new development in the county on school utilization, as well as questions about how utilization impacts student health, safety, and educational quality. And then finally, many participants emphasized the importance of special programs access, including concerns about equitable access to these programs. These concerns included distance traveled and the needs of English language learners and special education students. A broad range of other themes were also raised during community conversations in Phase 1, including transportation and distance to school, COVID-19, new development in the county, school performance, including student-teacher ratio, equity issues, including regional equity, equity for students with disabilities and special needs, and more. Safety and security, including safety concerns related to transportation and distance to school and overutilized schools. And then finally, language programs, including a desire to see more capacity for programs that support English language learners. These insights informed the development of 3 draft boundary scenarios, which were published in spring 2021 in the Draft Scenarios Report, along with key findings from engagement and an overview of project context and key concepts. The condensed 17-page summary report was published in English, Spanish, and French, and the whole 119-page report was also published online, also in spring of 2021. Now let's go over the 3 draft scenarios in a bit more detail. Each draft scenario has a unique set of goals and parameters. For scenario 1, the key objective is to address utilization extremes and minimize rezonings. This means focusing on the most severe cases of over and underutilization while redistricting as few students as possible. For scenario 2, the key objective is to improve utilization as widely as possible. This means optimizing utilization as widely as possible with a higher tolerance for redistricting students. The scenario also seeks to reduce the number of temporary classrooms in use, particularly those in poor condition, and it consolidates elementary schools with a focus on improving utilization. For scenario 3, the focus is to maximize students attending school in updated facilities. This scenario ensures that as many students as possible attend school in newer or updated facilities, and it removes the need for temporary classrooms aside from those in good condition. With the 3 scenarios drafted, we then look to get more input from the community in the second phase of engagement. In November of 2021, we conducted Phase 2 community engagement. This consisted of 5 virtual community conversations, which included presentations about the 3 draft boundary scenarios, Q&A with members of the Boundary Initiative team, live polling and chat to gather insights from participants, demonstration of the online Boundary Explorer tool, and facilitated breakout rooms where small groups had a chance to share their priorities and recommendations for the final scenarios. The Draft Boundary Scenarios Explorer tool is an online tool that was integral to this second phase of engagement. It allows community members to see how the 3 scenarios would impact them. They can search for schools by home address and then see proposed boundary changes across scenarios 1, 2, and 3, as seen in the screenshot on this slide. Also key to the second phase of engagement was the online feedback survey. This complemented feedback gained in the community conversations to give the community a chance to express preferences and concerns related to the 3 boundary scenarios. In the online survey, scenario 2 emerged as the one that most respondents preferred, with about a third of participants reporting they were strongly satisfied with this option and only 27% reporting being strongly unsatisfied. Scenario 1 had the greatest share of dissatisfaction, with 35% of respondents reporting being strongly unsatisfied. Across both phases of community engagement, this initiative engaged 2,570 participants in community conversations. We received a total of 1,948 responses in the online survey and comment form. The project website received over 13,190 views, and the online tool saw over 4,500 unique users. So what were some of the key takeaways across all engagement? First, overutilization was seen as the greatest priority for participants overall. Engagement trends point to scenario 2 as the preferred scenario for participating community members based on both direct responses in the survey, comments and polls in meetings, and overall alignment with what participants expressed to be their key priorities. The scenario 2 also is the one that improves utilization the most across the district, which is consistent with what those participant priorities were. Finally, many participants expressed concern about how development, school quality, and distance to school or school transportation would be taken into account in the final boundaries. It's important to note that certain groups were underrepresented across engagement. In phase 2, Spanish-speaking, Hispanic, and Latinx residents were underrepresented. This group had rated facility condition more highly than other groups during phase 1. Finally, let's go over the initiative's next steps. Key next steps include a work session with the Board of Education in mid-October. Then later in October, the public will be invited to participate in 2 virtual boundary sessions. And then finally, in late October to early November, the district will publish a boundary proposal first reader and second reader, which are going to also be made available to the public. If you're interested in learning more about the Comprehensive Boundary Initiative, please visit the project website at pgcps.org/boundary. There you'll find many resources from phase 1 and phase 2, including meeting presentations and recordings, the phase 1 and phase 2 engagement reports, the draft boundary scenarios report, and the Boundary Scenarios Explorer tool, where you can explore how proposed boundary changes may impact you directly. Thanks so much for tuning into this presentation, and have a great day.